In this module, we will see the opportunities and threats that entrepreneurs face due to increasing globalization. Globalization refers to the increasing interrelationships and interconnectedness among individuals, companies, institutions, nations. Factors like liberalization of trade and investments, as well as technological factors and the consequent reduction of transportation and communication costs, offer new opportunities for smaller firms to reach foreign markets. When companies are operating in sectors that are confronted with global competition and new market opportunities are located outside their national boundaries, they need to think globally and act globally. This is particularly true for companies starting in emerging and developing countries because of the scarcity of resources and turbulence in the institutional environment. Especially for them, growth opportunities are very much likely to be related to global markets. We may simplify and identify two main ways these companies may adopt to grow internationally. First, an active foreign expansion through export or direct presence in the foreign market. And second, a passive internationalization through the participation in the global value chains of large multinational companies, for example, by becoming subcontractors of large multinational companies. The first lessons will focus on active internationalization, that is, the steps and the related decisions that companies need to take in order to enter foreign markets. Then, we will focus on the second, more passive type of internationalization, that is the chance to enter the global value chains of large global players. The process of going international for a domestic company may assume different forms. The literature has widely shown that this is normally a gradual process, going from a lower level of commitment to a higher level of commitment. However, some entrepreneurial startups must have an international strategy from the very beginning and do not follow an incremental process, as they often do not have the time to do so. Terms like international new ventures or born globals have become highly popular to indicate entrepreneurs crossing borders. They refer to business organizations that, from inception, seek to derive significant competitive advantage from the use of resources and the sale of outputs in multiple countries. Benjamin Oviatt and Patricia McDougall in 1994 proposed 4 types of international new ventures, depending on the number of value chain activities and the number of countries involved. Export-import startups that are active in few countries with few activities. Multinational traders, when they internationalize few activities, for example, only sales, but in many countries. Geographically focused startups that internationalize many activities like research, manufacturing and sales, but only in few countries. And global startups that are present in many countries with many activities. However, how do potentially high-impact entrepreneurial startups, especially from emerging economies, select their positioning within the matrix? And how do they rapidly expand globally in order to compete with developed country competitors? In order to answer such questions, there are few basic steps to make. First, understanding what are the decisions a company needs to make when considering to enter the global arena. Which is the best market to enter? And when? And how? Second, understanding what are the obstacles and barriers to internationalization, and, most of all, how to overcome them. In fact, going abroad involves higher uncertainty and risk than domestic market. Smaller companies often suffer from internal constraints, mainly associated to the lack of financial and organizational resources and capabilities. Furthermore, dealing with the foreign environment implies the so-called liability of foreignness. In other words, the company is not familiar with the local customers, local rules, local laws, local institutions, and therefore sustains higher costs than local competitors. These barriers are particularly critical for entrepreneurial ventures from developing countries because of the lack of institutional support in their home country, a situation called institutional void, along with the difficulty of private financing. However, this support, for example from the government, is not the only condition to start exporting and investing profitably in international markets. Several studies have highlighted the role of individual characteristics of successful international entrepreneurs, that is, their qualities and characteristics. First of all, demographic variables, but also and especially their international entrepreneurial orientation, such as, for example, their risk appetite, aversion to ambiguity, innovative culture, creativity, and passion, among the others. Finally, several studies agree about the opportunities that information and communication technologies provide, especially to smaller companies, to overcome several of the barriers associated to international growth. Internet not only allows better and quicker information gathering about foreign markets, it also allows new business models and opens new e-opportunities, especially for creative entrepreneurial ventures.